Sí, estás en mute. So we're gonna try this in a little bit of a different setup because we were trying to be flexible for the people who wanted to join online. So if something's not clear or something, just let us know and we'll try to make that better. Yes.
Great. So
I can start.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Rayén. I am the co-founder of Radical Data. Radical Data is the initiator of the project Creando Futuronan, which is what we're going to speak about today, and a collaborator of many different partners, organizations, and creatives in Aruba. And today we're going to speak about our program Sustain that will happen during the month of November. And we wanted to make this online session to talk a little bit about the background of this program, what it's about, what are the goals of it, and also have a space for a Q&A, for questions for participants who may have heard about the program and want to ask us questions about content, vision, or even practicalities. We are here today to hear you and discuss the questions you can bring to the space. So I am going to start with a short introduction about what is Creando Futuronan, who are the partners behind. So Creando Futuronan, it's a program that is financed by the Stimulating Funds from the Platform for Design-Based Learning. And from the Netherlands, Radical Data is currently based in the Netherlands, but we do work all over the place, and we connect between Europe and the Global South. The creation of alternative technologies, visions, and narratives around the power of digital technology in our world. So we wanted, from the experiences of being in the Netherlands and working with the students and with different creatives, we saw and heard a lot through our conversations the situation and an issue that was that all the people that was interested on studying, on accessing education spaces and collaboration spaces that were kind of validated within the cultural field, and were from the Caribbean and the ABCSSS islands, have to leave and come to the Netherlands to be able to study and access those knowledges or those opportunities in the cultural field. And from those conversations, we realized that this is also a current colonial situation of power and access that still exists very present on the cultural field in the context of the Netherlands. So from that drive and the experiences of the different people we came across in those discussions, we decided to create Futuronan. Creando Futuronan, which is it's initiated by Radical Data, but it's made through collaboration with different partners that are also some of them present today. One of the main partners is Plataforma Aruba with Ana Maria, and also Residencia Artistico Aruba. We also are working with Brenchies Lab and Metabolic Foundation with Christy Mentis, and the collective content narratives, which also Mijenu is today, and Najila, but also there is Guion and Jair being present in this collaboration, and also Aina de Jong, which is the head of the Masters of Contextual Design in the Eindhoven Design Academy, who was also very much part of the drive of being part of the diaspora of the heritage in the Netherlands, and experienced a lot of seeing students coming to the university, having to leave the island to be able to access education, but also sustain their practices. So from that need and that question that we came across through these conversations, we decided to create this project called Creando Futuronan, and who has two different programs targeting different audiences. And today we're going to speak about Sustain, which is a program for young creatives who have experience or not professional education between 18 and 28 years old. And this program, which is an intensive program of over a month, in a way will try to target this gap and work together amongst the different needs and questions that can come across from the creative practitioners in the island of Aruba, and led by this big team of collaborators, of collective institutions, organizations, but also creatives who have experienced these same dynamics between the ABCSS Islands and the Netherlands, who wants to create an education program that comes from the island and works with the knowledges, the experiences, and the needs that are actually from there, from Aruba. So we will work through 8 intensive sessions that will happen 2 times per week or 2 times per week for 4 weeks. And during the evenings, the idea is that people that has normal jobs can also come and participate. And the focus is really to co-create and collaborate together around these educational frameworks that we will offer, that are rooted on social design, creative coding, storytelling, digital creative projects, sustainable practices. So we will lead frameworks to work together around some concepts that we want to bring to the space, but they will be very much rooted on the needs and the visions of the participants as well. And then some part at the end of the program we will dedicate for the participants to create a prototype of project that can be based in Aruba, and all this team of facilitators will offer their mentorships for this program, for these projects and these prototypes to come to life. So it's a space for education and exchange, but also we will use methodologies that are much more based on exchange and collaboration, that in a horizontal way we can exchange experiences and bring a body of knowledge and practices that can be sustainable also in the future, not just on Aruba, but also with a project that can also connect the different islands and the different experiences in the ABCSS Islands in the Caribbean. So this is more or less what Sustain is about, and some of the goals and the desires that are behind what we have created by many months of work with all these partners thinking and planning this program that will happen in a couple of weeks. So the dates are from the 11th of November till the 6th of December. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening we will meet for around 2 hours in the space of the Residencia Artistico Aruba in Ra. It's a program that will happen in person, and also, as maybe you saw in some of the promotion, it also includes a stipend that will be awarded for when the program is complete. The idea is that the participants who sign up come and commit to the full program, because we're going to work along and we are creating a very compact program for you to get as much of this experience as we can. And we need people that can commit for most of it. And we want to also offer all facilitation for participants to come, and that the stipend also has that goal. Create also a schedule, a time during the day where people can come after work. Also, we have discussed if there is like mothers who have kids, we can also like make a space for them to stay, and we can take care collectively about situations like this. So please, if there are practical needs that you need to solve to be able to come to this program, don't hesitate to ask, and we can make any specific situation work for you to come and participate in this program. So there is some space that I can speak a little bit about some of the projects of Radical Data as kind of case studies and references of the kind of work we will be like looking at. But I want to ask you, Ana Maria, if there are already any questions, or should I talk a little bit about some projects and then open the Q&A? You are more in charge of the participants.
So far, no. So
Okay.
far, there are no questions.
Okay, so I'm gonna go for like a 5-minute review of a few projects for the people who is present. We wanted to show today a few images and projects of Radical Data as a kind of example of the work we have done so far, and some of the questions and ideas that we will bring to the space of Aruba, and for the participants to also engage with similar questions and take that drive to create in this very specific place, the ideas and desires that are rooted in your practices. So I'm gonna share, if it's possible, I think it's possible to share my screen. Yes, aquí, share. Can you see my screen? Great. Is that like all presented? Yeah. So I'm just going to speak like quickly through some of the projects we are developing right now and that are part of Radical Data through different collaborations. Also, I just want to bring examples of collaborations that we have done so far as the ones we're doing now with the partners in Aruba, but in different places. One example, a project we are doing right now is called the Museum of Stolen Artifacts. And it's a project that is trying to create the first database of all stolen artifacts through colonialism that we're taking from indigenous communities, mainly in the Global South, that are now living in museums of the Western world, mainly in the United States and also Central Europe. So we started with a question from visiting the British Museum, having some collaborations before in Rapa Nui, Easter Island, and some activists that were friends, Leo Pacarati, for example, who was an activist to take the Moai Hakana Inaia, who now lives still in the British Museum and belongs to the Rapa Nui community. And we started wondering where the information, where the data, where the stories of these objects exist right now in the world, how we can access it, and how people who knows that the objects were stolen at some point in history can know about them. And all the stories and all the data and all the infrastructure around dates and stories and traveling documents are all in hands of the museums and the databases of the museums. So we thought about how owning that data, how putting into the hands of the people, how creating databases that have ontologies that are based on indigenous visions, on the history, and the reappropriation of that information is the first step for re-owning those objects and bring them back. So the Museum of Stolen Artifacts is first a database of those objects that we are started building with the Rapa Nui community, and then also a whole infrastructure. Then it became a whole museum for a restitution of these objects. So we are working with lawyers, with different collectives around the world, about how to create a collective infrastructure for restitution of this object, because it doesn't exist. There are efforts spread around the world, but not really a collective knowledge of them that can help, that communities can help each other to be able to fight against this very present colonialism that exists around these objects, for example, in the British Museum, but so many others in the Western world. There is also the project Apply Science Fiction that we are also developing right now, which is a project around political imagination around the future and how the potential of science fiction to help us to imagine and have a sense of possibility around the use of technology in our world. So we were interviewing and researching projects actually from the past, before the digital technology became massive and part of our lives, around the 70s and the 80s, where some people and collectives were part of big visionary projects that used technology for the people, and it was in hands of the people as a tool for liberation and collectivity, and not the tools that exist right now that are much more just for oppression and are in the hands of a few billionaires basically in Silicon Valley. So we were interviewing, for example, in this photo, Eden Medina, which was the main researcher on the project Cybersyn, which was it's called the Internet created 20 years before the Internet, where in the 70s, the socialist president Salvador Allende in Chile created a socialist internet called Cybersyn to organize the materials conditions for factories along Chile, and workers were able to organize the information. So this is the image of the operations room of the Cybersyn project that sadly was killed with the whole Unidad Popular dream, with the dictatorship. But there is a big documentation project that Eden Medina is being very much part of. So we were doing research, interviews of people taking part of projects like this to question how we can recover that sense of possibility around digital technology and imagination around the future. There is also the project Mesh that we're also very interested to bring to Aruba and discuss also with the participants. Also, we will work a little bit around that with Spark, with the younger participants, which when this project, for example, comes from working with some collectives and people when the genocide in Palestine started and the communications were completely shut down, and how it showed how much our communication is so centralized and controlled. So we were started researching very quickly that how we can communicate with a decentralized network that doesn't depend on the internet. And there were a lot of forums and knowledge on the hands of like something called like preppers, which is like mainly like white guys in the United States building bunkers to survive the end of the world. And they were researching and they had a lot of knowledge around like radio communications and alternative networks and things like that. But actually, when the world was ending for Gaza, they were not really talking about how this tool can be used, for example, in another context. So we were started collecting this information. We were started building a prototype of like how we can, and the technology we have right now and we have had for several decades allowed us, for example, to build mesh networks that are horizontal, that don't depend on centralized towers that can be thrown by a government or also by a company or depend on Elon Musk's satellite. So we started building prototypes of how we can communicate in different ways. And Mesh is one of those prototypes that we did. In this case, these photos are from the Conference of Public Spaces in the Netherlands. And we are also now building something that could happen in Amsterdam, also in Chile, working some collectives in Latin America that also have already experience on these mesh networks exist around the world already, but we need to connect these efforts also to make them accessible. And the last project I want to share, it's also, this is more like a digital infrastructure we created probably for a project you know, it is called Queering the Map, which collects stories, queer stories around the world and radical data. Last year have rebuilt the digital infrastructure of it because we have this issue, and this is interesting also for Sustain, but in general, we as arts and creative practitioners, we lack funding and resources for sustainability of projects. In general, the fundings are for projects that are new and new ideas, but when you have a project that already is working and you want to sustain it, there is not really funding for that. So that's the case for Queering the Map that have existed for more than 7 years. And the infrastructure was built on Google Maps and was starting to crash because there were too many stories, there was no moderation system, and again, it's something made for activists and for people who doesn't have necessarily the money to sustain projects like this. So Radical Data have rebuilt the whole digital infrastructure. It did like a de-Google, so it's an now based in open source. Maps infrastructure also, it works because before the website was breaking, and it works much quicker. So it's an example also of like how we can create infrastructures that can work also for something for different projects. So this is part of a bigger project called co-mapping, where this infrastructure it was not just useful for Queering the Map, but then we did a documentation that can be useful for different mapping projects that, for example, we could also do in the context of Aruba. So that's a very quick walk through some of the projects we were working this year, and that we want to also bring similar practices to the space of Aruba. So I would like to open the space for a few questions or comments from the participants that are today here. I'm here, and also some of the other panelists are here to answer your questions. Any of those, we are really happy to hear.
Hi, good day. Is it the intention with this to have a sort of, because I bet you will have people with diverse talents in the group, to really individualistically see where they want to go to and help shape that vision? Is that a bit of the idea?
Thank you for your question. It could be. I think something we know is that there will be a group with different backgrounds because there is an age where people also could have gone to university or can be self-taught or can be starting also a creative path. And the idea is like you can come in any point you are, and we will work with those different stages. You know, so if you are a person who already has a practice and has a clear, I don't know, desire, statement, form of doing things, the idea is that with the different sessions, we will have a space for someone like that, but also for someone who is very young and is starting and has like a desire, but not really, for example, a practice. So we will work on how that desire can form a practice, or someone who has a practice but doesn't know how to sustain it. So the idea is also to bring, okay, you bring your practice and then we work around sustainability of those practices. So there are those different levels, and we will work with all of them. And that's the idea, that all the sessions are very like it's a collaboration between the different partners, so we can also divide, for example, around themes, you know, also around topics, people who works more with digital things, people who work more with sustainability, people who work more in arts. The idea is we can work and learn from the different stages we are, and make a group with that diversity. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also didn't say about the language, but also just to say to the participants that the sessions will be in English mainly, but there will be support for Papiamento. There also, well, I speak Spanish and most people also speak Spanish. So the idea there will be like that the language is not also a problem. English would be the main one, but there will be support for Papiamento as well.
Oh, yeah. A question about the stipend.
Sí.
Is that then meant to develop something that you've sort of been working towards?
No, the stipend is just to pay you for your time, for like, so I said that the stipend is just to pay you for your time for coming to the session. So it's not for you to use it as a production necessarily or anything like that. It's like a honorary payment, because we know that maybe, for example, for some people, it may happen that you have to not like jump an hour of work or something like that. The idea is that money is not an issue. So this stipend is for your time for coming for those 4 weeks, so that you have a little bit of support in that way. But it's not for production. And for production, if there is the need of production, we'll find other ways to fund that. So it's not the same. That's not the goal.
Yeah, thank you.
You can ask here. Can you hear us? Yeah?
Yes.
I have a very fundamental, rudimentary question, which is of the potential student. What does this all have to do with art?
Well, it's a very important question, because I think it's a big question for our time, is what art is, and because it takes very different forms. And contemporary art, I think, it's a very broad spectrum right now. Things that 20 or 40 years ago were not art, they are right now. So I think the thing I could say as an artist is that art is the underlayer of all of this, because it's about all what we're gonna do and work around is around creativity and around how each of us as different individuals in this world have a drive and to create different things in this world. And I think it's very important to root that honestly on who we are, and not necessarily following the trends or the stories that other people wants to tell us that art is. And that's a big issue, for example, in art education, in universities, or because funding and things, institutions exist, so they usually tell you as an artist what you should be interested in, or what kind of thing you should be doing, or what kind of aesthetics you should be following. And the idea is that as an artist, and for also the partners we are working with, I know that we are very connected on the idea that art is a way of doing things, of living, of expressing ourselves. And this is under all of the program of Creando Futuronan. And that could take, I would say, art can take a form of an art piece that can go to a gallery, but also can take the form of a digital tool that you can want to use in your neighborhood, or can take the form of a story that you want to write and put in a fanzine or in a book, or can take the form of a protest as well, because it's an action that you want to put into a space that is important for you. So I would say artistic practices are the force, or the energy that we are taking through different shapes that can take part of this program, as I'm saying, because it's very interdisciplinary. It's not just one thing. It's not just dance, theater, or visuals. It's a lot of different things, and we want to invite those different forms to take a space and take and strengthen each other through the collective work we will do. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Helemaal niet.
Snap je niet?
Helemaal niet.
Hoe dan?
Ik snap helemaal niks.
Oh. Of course, yeah.
Sorry. So my question was regarding, like you made an example about digital. In the cases of people who do digital art and they might use their tablets or they have the special tools for that, we will have to bring those equipments with us, and then you guys will just have people that are maybe well known of the apps or the programs that those people might use, or are you we're going to be using a specific program? I'm just asking.
Yeah. So considering equipment, I think well, there are two things. One is like the software, like equipments, like computers and things like that, and that's why one of them. Also, the reasons we are collaborating, for example, with Brenchies Lab, which is this makerspace. They have a lot of digital and hardware infrastructure that we can use. So the idea is that for some people who may want to be interested, for example, in building something like a mesh network or something like that, can use the software and the tools that Brenchies Lab have. So there are available physical things to work with. And in the software side, if we do work, and if the participants want to work with things, we usually work with like open source software. So the idea is that it's accessible and free for everyone to use. So if you have, for example, an artistic practice, or you have a desire, not necessarily yet an artistic practice, that wants to work with digital tools, with Radical Data and with Brenchies Lab, we will support you with your creative process and the project you're going to build, with like the hardware through Brenchies Lab, and also the software and open source softwares that Radical Data and also Brenchies Lab work always with. So the idea is that if you have the equipment, of course, you can bring it if you want to work with, but if you don't and you want to work with things that you don't have, we make that also happen.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Fashion.
Or like physical or canvas.
The digital drawing life, and also designing fashion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they could same
the
area,
same
because
area.
I'm also in fashion and
Oh, nice.
I think they just have to.
It's very nice about like, because my main focus is mainly art and fashion, but then it's just now like, okay, but what does it have to do with?
Yeah, so maybe it would be good, for example, she's interested in art, like fashion, like if she would join, like what could she expect as someone who's interested in that field?
Yeah, as I said before, the idea is to really invite, when you ask also about art, is not to in Spanish we say casarse, like be married with one discipline. The idea is that you will be invited to any kind of creative discipline you want. So the idea is that we want to work around what is the source of creative practices, then how you sustain creative practices, and then a kind of prototype of that through mentorship. So with those will be like the 3 blocks of the program through the 4 weeks that we will work together. So in the case you do fashion, like it really doesn't matter what is the language you want to use, but the thing that is in common is like how you build a creative practice and what are the main questions, how you can root the pillars of your practice, if they are clear, and how you can like understand yourself as an artist as well, or as a creative, and then how you sustain that practice. So we will talk from like, how do you do that practice every day? Which kind of funding exists in the world that can help you to develop that practice? In which people you can collaborate. For example, like Afaina de Jong, which is an architect from the Netherlands. She's also helping us to create a network of people that you can access, for example, and you could ask questions to. So the idea is to provide also like a whole network of people that you can connect to. So if you do fashion, how you do know who are also other artists from the Caribbean that are doing a fashion, or people who is in the Netherlands already doing things that you are interested on, or like not just fashion, but also fashion that with similar question to you. Also understand how to apply a funding, which kind of opportunities you could have to sustain a project like yours, how you can connect to that world. And then the idea of developing a kind of prototype of a project in the last couple of sessions, and having the mentorships of the different partners, is that you can specifically have feedback for a project that you want to develop, for example, and specifically see, okay, this is an open code that can help me. How do I apply for? How do I write a funding application? Questions like that will also be engaged. So it's, I would say, more than working around one discipline, we will work around frames that can support creative, our artistic practices, and walk through those 4 weeks together.
I don't know. And if maybe you guys can tell a bit more about what you've been currently doing and how you would like, or what kind of actions have been taken to sustain it, to make it into something long term, because that can also inform us as to how that's.
Yeah. In my case, I do character designing, and I tend to also like playing around with different ways you can like tell of a character. So I usually just post my art online, and so that's how I keep on going, because I like to do. Sorry. In the case of like, I feel like I'd say ideally, mostly if I had somewhere I was aiming for would be commission. So obviously doing art for other people, whether it's their character, or maybe I could try to lean in direction of character designing for stories, mostly. So that's me. Yeah, so I would assume then, like, when I read about this, I was like, oh, perhaps you guys could give me more information on how to set up for commissioning, how to put a portfolio for stuff like that, perhaps schools or courses that I could go through to be better and be able to represent myself more better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also that's this is for us the beautiful thing, and the desire of opening these two very different practices and different stages, because also the idea is that we will co-shape this program together. So, for example, if there is more needs around commissions and understanding how commission world works more than funding applications, we will focus more on that. Or if there is a group of people that needs support on commissions and a group of people on funding, we will work on that. So the idea is that we will really co-create this program, and this is why it's very important that people can come for the full thing, because it is around the people who comes, and it's around the needs of and the questions of the different practitioners that come to it. And that's also why we have in the team people who comes from different backgrounds and have different and works in different kind of industries, you know, like, so there's like Radical Data, for example, we do much more like public funding, but there is also other people who work around commissions, and there is people who works more like outside of the funding world, and because they think it's problematic and want to build something else. So different economies, and I don't know, the idea is to have a very like the idea of this multiple partner team is that we can answer your questions, but also to someone else that can wants another path. And the idea is that we really build this together. So that's why your participation, and when I say it's co-creative and collaborative, is because the goal is to really build a network with the participants of the program and the partners, and also the potential network that is outside and can help the participants that are going to come to build a practice and sustain it.
Yes, thank you.
So it's important, I think, for participants to know that they don't have to be all, how do you say, ready and cooked. They can just be rare and come in, you know, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. With the quest, with the desires, with the dreams, with whatever they have, in whatever stage, they are very welcome. And we will work together around those dreams and those drives. So the desire we just ask is your presence and your desire to work collective, because it's going to be a collaborative practice. But also, I don't know, the idea is like also each one will work individually in their own practice. So it's also it's a kind of constellation. So presence and constellation way of working, that's all what we want and we need.
No more questions? If you have any more questions, in any case, you can also just get. I don't know, Rayén, if yeah. If you have any final thoughts.
No, I'm just, well, I'm really happy. Thank you for your questions. I'm really happy to hear it, because I think it's just very important also for the next week we have of communications to make clear some of the things that you, the participants today asked, and also to be very welcoming to the different stages any practice can be and wants to be part of these. But yeah, and it's we are very, very, very excited to do this program together. There is one hand over there.
Sorry, just a small question. You did say that there was gonna be during later the day, so like at night for people that work. Do you guys have like a specific hour that it's gonna be, or is it that you guys are busy figuring that part out?
Ana Maria, I couldn't hear properly the question. Can you?
You guys, sorry, you mentioned earlier that there was gonna be also like later or better said at night or in the evening, yes, in the evening.
Yeah.
People who work so that they're able to also attend. Do you guys have like an hour specifically that it would be, or is that going to be worked as you guys figure out who participates in?
Yeah, I mean, in general, in our head, it's between like 7 and 9, because it's like evening after work. But also the idea is to, let's say the first session we do it like this, but the idea is we come, if the participants, all of them are free at 5, and I don't know, prefer to do it a bit earlier than too late, we do it together. So I think in the overall perspective, I would say after like from 7, because that's usually if people ends work at around 6 or something, they can move and things like that. But it's quite, we haven't mentioned it clearly because it's quite adaptative, I think, for the people who will come. But let's say for now, between 7 and 9, that will be more or less the framework.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time and figuring out where to park.
We drove as a boat to park.
And as always, you know where to contact us. This space is also free to come visit. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here. program, anything better. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. And well, we'll see each other probably in a few weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.